All right, so now I'm going to show you how to use Punnett Squares to predict the probability of producing certain kinds of offspring with certain traits. So I'm going to show you how using actually the cross that Mendel did, because there it is for us. So we see the phenotypes very clearly. So we're going to use, kind of work backwards because we know the answer. But I'm going to show you how to use a Punnett Square to predict, having made, although we already know, this F2 generation, these offspring right here. Okay, so Punnett Squares might look like a lot of work, but if you follow these few steps, you'll be fine, even when we get more complicated when we do the dihybrid cross next. Okay, so this is what we call a monohybrid cross. It's a more simple little Punnett Square. We're only going to look at one trait at a time. Obviously, you're made of a whole bunch of traits that make up you, but this is focusing on just one particular trait, which is, in this example, flower color. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is figure out the parent phenotypes. Okay, step one. Okay, so, and that's, again, the phenotype is what you physically are, so it's either purple or white. All right, step two, figure out the parent genotypes. Is that okay? Okay. Okay, third step is to make the possible gametes that the parents make. Okay. Can you read that okay? It's a different color. Yeah, that's way better. Okay, make gametes. Okay, and step four is to combine those gametes to make the babies, right? So, yeah, combine. I give myself enough room. So this part is sexual reproduction, combining an egg and a sperm. There's a sperm. There's an egg. Running out of. There we go. Nice. To make a diploid offspring. Cool. All right. What we had here, so I told you that they were two breeding purple and two breeding white. We know that that means that they're homozygous, because if there was another different allele in there, it would have shown up somewhere along the family tree. So we know that those parents right there, that they're homozygous. Okay, so the purple flowered one, that's its phenotype. This one right there, its phenotype is purple. Its genotype is homozygous dominant, because purple is the dominant allele. Okay. Did I mention that? So remember I was talking about, I'm getting ahead of myself. I was talking about alleles, how there's different flavors. So what letter should we use? Let's use just A. The letters are arbitrary, by the way. So that dominant allele is for purple. Okay. So this is the genotype. Genotype. Okay. Again, homozygous dominant means you have both two of the same. Homozygous dominant, two of the same alleles. The phenotype is purple, because purple is the dominant allele. If you're heterozygous, that's the genotype is heterozygous. That's, we write it that way, where it's two different letters. That's actually also purple. Okay? If you have two recessive alleles, it's off stage, you're homozygous recessive, that's how you are the white flower. Okay? And it's not like you're like looking at the chromosome, you like actually see like a big A on there. All that means is that if you have at least one dominant allele, you will have the dominant phenotype, which is purple. Okay, it only takes one. That's why it's dominant. Only when it kind of like overpowers this allele over here. You still have it. It's still your genes. You can still pass it on, but it's not expressing it. Okay, so it's like this one like overpowers it. So all it takes is one dominant allele to have this dominant phenotype, which is the purple flower. Okay, if you don't have any dominant alleles, you're just homozygous recessive. Both of your alleles are recessive. You have the recessive phenotype. Okay, which is white in this case. If we were to do the Punnett Squares of crossing these two parents here to make these ones here, what would that look like? So again, our parent phenotype, it's purple. We actually now know that this one's homozygous dominant, okay, and that this one's homozygous recessive. Cool, so we know the phenotypes, cool, purple and white. We know the genotypes, okay, it's homozygous dominant for purple, homozygous recessive for white. Now we have to make the gametes. So again, making gametes, that's what meiosis is, right? It's making eggs and sperm. So if you are homozygous dominant for that particular trait for flower color, and let's say that this is the male flower, sure, whatever, that means that all of the sperm or pollen for the plant it's all going to have that dominant allele. That's all it has to give. You can't pass down something you don't have, right? You're passing down, if you only have dominant alleles, that's all you have, that's all you pass down, right? So you're starting with something that's diploid, but what is the ploidy of the gametes of the sex cells? Remember? They're haploid, right? You start with diploid, but the eggs and sperm that you make, they're haploid. So how many of those do you pass down to your offspring? Only one of them, right? Yeah. So all of the sperm, there's a sperm, are going to have a dominant allele. They all are. That's all they have to give. Okay. We could be like redundant and have two, so it looks like a proper like 2 by 2 Punnett square. That's just being redundant though. So there you go. Cool. So that's nice. This parent over here, we'll say it's a female, so the eggs or ovules that she makes, they're homozygous. She is homozygous recessive. That's her genotype. All of her eggs, all of her gametes are going to be recessive too. That's all she has. It'll be redundant, sure. So you get a good picture. Okay. There you go. There you go. So the next step is to combine the eggs and sperm. It's sexual reproduction. Okay. So what we do, make this funny looking little table, okay? So what's going on inside these the squares, or the Punnett squares, is you're seeing the possible combinations, okay? I'm going to be very redundant. So like this square represents this egg being fertilized by that sperm. That's what it means. So how we do it, it's pretty easy. You bring them down and across. So I'm going to bring this egg over here. Cool. This egg over here. So she's coming across. This egg over here. I could just do one, but whatever. All right, so those eggs. So this square represents this egg being fertilized by that sperm, so we'll bring them down. Okay, so that sperm fertilizing that egg, that's what you're making here. And again, same thing. This egg being fertilized by this sperm, that's what we're making. It's all going to be the same. This egg being fertilized by that sperm. It's all, that is what you're making. Okay, they're all going to be, what's the genotype here? Well, they're different. Their genotype is heterozygous. But what's their phenotype going to be? All it takes is one dominant allele to have the dominant phenotype. That's what we made over here. Now we know these are all heterozygous. And why they all took after one parent and not the other is because this allele is like overpowering this one. That's there. It still got passed down, of course. They're still being passed down. But the color purple is not being expressed because it only takes one dominant allele to express that purple color. So the parent generation crossing a homozygous dominant purple flower with a homozygous recessive white flower. All of their kids, filial 1, F1 generation, they're all going to be the genotype, heterozygous, all going to have the phenotype purple. So these ones in the middle here, that represented the F1 generation, the ones that were made from crossing the two parents. Okay, so to make the F2 generation, that's crossing a heterozygote with a heterozygote. Okay, where'd my pink go? Is that this one I wanted? All right, so if we're crossing a heterozygote with another heterozygote, it looks a little more interesting. So if you're heterozygous, remember again, that means you have one of each kind of allele. So what kind of gametes can you make? Because that's the next step, right? So if you have a dominant allele here, a recessive allele here, when you're doing meiosis, when you're making sperm and eggs, half of the dominant alleles are going to go on one group of gametes, half are going to go over here. So like literally half the sperm you make are going to have a dominant allele, half the sperm you make are going to have a recessive allele, or eggs, whatever it is that you're making. Yeah, so really it's a 50-50 chance of which egg gets ovulated or which sperm reaches that egg. There's a 50-50 chance of passing down either a dominant allele or a recessive allele. Okay, so well, let's make those gametes. So step 3, make the gametes. So if you're making sperm, half of your sperm are going to have a dominant allele. There it is. There it is again. Half your sperm are going to have a recessive allele. It's a 50-50 chance, and neither one's like better than the other. Like it's just, that's just the probability to be the one being passed down. Keep this one. Making eggs. Half of your eggs are going to have a dominant allele. Half are going to have a recessive allele. That's just the probability. Again, think of Punnett squares. It's showing you the probability of producing certain offspring. It's not necessarily going to be like exactly like this, but it's like, you know, what's the odds of getting heads or tails? It's 50-50 chance, right? So it's showing you the odds of producing certain offspring. All right, so this is going to look a little more interesting. So these sperm, half are dominant, half are recessive. These eggs, half are dominant, half are recessive. But we're going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to bring them across and down. So this square represents this egg. Okay, bring them across. These eggs coming across here. Okay, cool. So this square represents this egg being fertilized by this sperm. So bring them down. This sperm fertilizing this egg is right here. Okay. This egg being fertilized by this sperm is right here. This square represents this egg being fertilized, break down by this sperm. So it's looking a little more interesting here. Okay. So if we look at just the genotypes, out of 4, 1 out of 4 are homozygous dominant. Okay. 2 out of 4 are heterozygous. And 1 out of 4 are homozygous recessive. We might call that a 1 to 2 to 1 genotypic ratio. If we're looking at the phenotypic ratio, though, what's this one's phenotype? Should I actually draw a little flower there? I'll write it. It's going to be purple. Oh, God. Purple. All right, purple. This one, what's its phenotype? If it's heterozygous, purple. Because purple's dominant, and it only takes one dominant allele to have that dominant phenotype. This one's also purple. Okay. And this one right here? This one's white. So 3 purples to 1 white. Okay, so yeah, what happened, this white one, it's the trait that the phenotype skipped a generation. They're taking after their grandparent up here. But like the genes didn't go anywhere. They've just been like hidden by those heterozygotes. Okay, so maybe you've like seen this like in your family, like maybe a trait like skipped a generation, like you got like your grandmother's like eyes or something. And people are like, oh, where did that come from? If you don't look like either of your parents, like that's totally possible to happen. Okay, they could just be those traits could just be masked, but they're there all the time in your genes. Okay, so that's a monohybrid cross. So next, let's do a dihybrid cross.